Welcome back. Now, our next silent killer is feeling overwhelmed. I'm sure you can identify it from time to time with this guy here in our picture. Now, whether it's your task piling up, or maybe you're a manager and you're trying to manage it all, or even if you're a mother or father that's trying to balance work with your family life, we all seem to be stressed further and further these days. Now, here's the thing. When your brain gets overwhelmed, it's kind of like a breaker is being shut off. Your brain just completely shuts down. Now, we hear this from our clients and my students all the time. They're overwhelmed and they don't even know where to start. And in many cases, when this happens, they freeze, so it paralyzes them and they're just stuck in the mud. But the problem is, those tasks don't go away, so that only makes the problem worse. We do have some good news for you, however. It doesn't have to be this way. You see, overwhelm really is subjective. It's much more than an emotion than it is a reality. With the right system or structure in place, you can manage just about anything that comes your way. So please, don't leave this lecture without really initializing this fact. With the right system or structure in place, you can manage just about anything that comes your way. In this course, we are going to show you multiple systems and strategies. But as an individual, you're unique. You've got different strengths and weaknesses and preferences than your neighbor or your co-worker. So in the end, it's up to you to try on a few of our strategies and decide what works best for you and your personal situation and style. Well, these strategies are coming up later, but we don't want to leave you completely hanging until then. So we want to give you a couple of quick suggestions right now. We know that one major source of overwhelming for most of us is caused by that open loop that happens in your head. Your brain thinks it's doing you a favor by continuing to remind you and remind you and remind you of all those open tasks and to-dos you have on your to-do list. But many times, it chooses to remind us at the most inappropriate time, perhaps when you're lying down to go to sleep at night, and it'll continue to bombard us with all our open tasks. The first thing you've got to do when you get overwhelmed is to get all those things out of your head. You've got to break out a piece of paper and a pen and perform a brain dump. Just get it all out. We mean everything. From there, once you've got it all out on paper, you can prioritize it and break it into bite-sized pieces. Then, you can break out the urgent from the not-so-urgent, and you can remove those tasks altogether that really aren't a priority. You must decide to delegate or hand some of those tasks off to someone else. But the key is to get it all out of your head onto paper. And once you have it on that paper, it's going to help your brain understand that everything's accounted for, and it will help to reduce that continual open loop. And once you've got it on paper, you can then start to organize it and create a plan. The other major source of overwhelm is due to complexity. If we deem a project too large or too complex, it can freeze us in our tracks just like before. You've got to break out a pen and hash things out on paper. For example, let's say you've got a presentation to do for a client. Now, that can be a very big task and one that can overwhelm you just by the size of it. Let us use this as an actual example. So let's say on your to-do list, you've got something written down like most of us might do, and you just put a presentation or create a presentation. Now that itself is a pretty big task, and as that is staring you in the face, it can be overwhelming. So what we're going to suggest for you is instead break that down into many smaller pieces and make them as small as you possibly can. So, for example, maybe your first task is to call boss for suggestions. Okay, so that could be a simple first step. The second step could be, starting the outline. Maybe a third step would be to research evidence for whatever your presentation is going to be on. Maybe another step would be to create your PowerPoint slides. And then after that, perhaps we're going to create notes for each slide. Then we'll practice our overall pitch in our presentation. And then perhaps we put something down like time our presentation. Again, this is just an example of what you might use, but the key is to come and break these down into further steps and make them as small as possible, because once you start to break these chunks down, it becomes a lot less overwhelming. Instead of having this huge, create presentation task staring you in the face, it's easier just to pick up the phone, call your boss, ask for some suggestions, and then, boom, you can come down here to your list and cross the first task off it. Now, depending upon how overwhelmed you are, the more overwhelmed you are, the smaller you need to break down each task. The smaller you break down each task, the quicker your overwhelm is going to go away, and you can start knocking these off one at a time. As we get to later lectures, we're going to go into more detail on how you can combat overwhelm. But for now, what we encourage you to do is to look for times when you get overwhelmed as a trigger for your procrastination and start to jot down all your tasks and everything that's in your head on paper. And if complexity is the issue, and if sometimes it's too large for you, break it down into smaller chunks. Let's move on.